As I entered our Nashville flat, I trembled and whispered, "Baby, I lost my job." Marcus' expression changed from casual indifference to something far darker, and I saw it happen. Behind those icy blue eyes that I once found lovely, I could see his thoughts spinning as the words lingered between us like a toxic fog. "You what?" he yelled, dropping his phone with a crisp crack upon the granite countertop. "Charlotte, tell me you're joking. I'm 35 years old, and my name is Charlotte Hayes. I've been a senior marketing director at Northrise Apparel, one of Nashville's most prominent fashion brands, for the last 8 years. In addition to a salary, my employment provided me with access to industry parties, celebrity networking events, and contacts that opened doors all across the city." Marcus had always enjoyed accompanying me to these gatherings, wooing customers and establishing relationships that somehow always appeared to help his faltering consultancy firm. But I was putting him to the test tonight. In fact, I had been given the opportunity of a lifetime earlier that day when I was promoted to Vice President of Brand Strategy, with a salary that would almost quadruple our household income. However, I had been plagued with a developing hunch that had been bothering me for months instead of celebrating. Marcus seems more concerned with my work schedule than our private lives. He was more familiar with the names of my coworkers than he was with my favorite eatery. He would inquire about certain clients whenever I brought up work-related stress. He would remind me of forthcoming industry events if I recommended peaceful evenings at home. I went on, shoving tears into my eyes as I said, "I'm sorry. My department was severely impacted by the restructure. I was released this morning." Marcus paced our living room like an animal in a cage, running his hands over his flawlessly combed brown hair. "This is not possible. Are you aware of what this means? Next week is the Morrison account presentation. I had hoped that you would introduce me to their marketing department." He never once inquired about my well-being. He never once provided consolation or assurance. His initial concern, instead, was about his business prospects. Realizing that my darkest worries may be coming true made my heart sink. "Marcus, I thought you'd be more concerned about me than your networking opportunities," I said gently. "Concerned about you?" He gave a sour laugh. "You just ruined everything we've worked so hard to create, Charlotte. Your work was the cornerstone of our society, not merely a source of income. We wouldn't exist in this city without your job at Northrise." His voice was so poisonous that I took a step back. At the very least, this was not the mask he had worn during our courting, and this was not the guy I had married 3 years prior. 4 years ago, Marcus and I met at a charity fashion event for Northrise Apparel. During the cocktail hour, he had come up to me with a charming grin and said he was interested in consulting for sustainable fashion. In hindsight, I should have known he had looked over the guest list and singled me out. But at the time, I was intrigued by his understanding of business trends and pleased by his attention to detail. After we moved in together, I began to see trends in our relationship, which had before been a blur of romantic meals and weekend trips. Before my work events, Marcus usually appeared more energized. He would inquire in depth about who would be there, what they did, and how they could help his company. He would become excited when I told him that I had met someone new or had landed a major customer after I had returned home fatigued after a long day. Marcus went on, still pacing, "You're being dramatic. You are aware of the amount of effort I have put into cultivating contacts in this field. My consultancy business was expected to be established with the aid of your contacts. What should I say to prospective customers now?" I said, "Maybe you could tell them about your actual qualifications and experience," in a sharper-than-intended tone. Anger distorted his face. "Charlotte, don't pretend you don't know how business is conducted. You were my in, and it all comes down to who you know. We're simply another couple trying to make it in Nashville without your work." I remembered how he had always positioned himself strategically next to prominent people at industry meetings, how he had practiced discussions about his business in our bathroom mirror before parties, and all the times he had urged me to go to networking events that I didn't want to. I had been too trusting to notice the indications clearly, but they had been there. "I've been supporting both of us financially for the past 2 years while you've been building your brand," I told him. "Maybe it's time you actually started earning some income instead of just collecting business cards." Marcus retorted, "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You have consistently denigrated my work. The long-term plan is something you've never grasped. It takes time to build a consulting firm, and your job was meant to provide me that time. His use of your position gave the impression that it was a tool rather than my line of work. I understood that he had never seen me as Charlotte the person, but rather as Charlotte the social ladder, Charlotte the networking opportunity, and Charlotte the meal ticket to Nashville's corporate elite. So, what happens now? Curious to see how far his selfishness would take him, I questioned. I don't know, he responded, raising his hands in frustration. I suppose I'll have to find out how to start over and recreate everything. Charlotte, the timing couldn't be better. Absolutely flawless. Taking his keys off the counter, he made his way to the door. I need to breathe. I am unable to handle this at this time. Our wedding photo shook on the side table when the front door shut behind Marcus. I stood in our apartment's unexpected quiet, trying to make sense of what had just transpired. I had suspected that he would be upset about losing his social contacts, but I had never anticipated such ruthless, self-centered behavior. I had just been exposed by my spouse as someone who just considered me a professional accessory. Congratulations on your promotion to Vice President of Brand Strategy, read the email I received that morning from my employer, which I opened on my laptop as I strolled to our bedroom. Our business has benefited much from your vision and leadership, and we look forward to seeing what you achieve in your new position. I had worked for years to gain financial freedom, so the income amount at the bottom of the email felt meaningless now that I knew my spouse solely appreciated my professional contributions. My phone buzzed with a text from my colleague Jasmine. Girl, I saw the announcement. Vice President before 36. You're killing it. Drinks tomorrow to celebrate? I stared at the message, realizing I couldn't share my joy with the person who was supposed to be my closest partner. Instead, Marcus was out somewhere, probably calling his sister Vanessa to complain about his useless wife who just lost her value to him. I thought back to our wedding day when he'd promised to love me for richer or poorer, in good times and bad. Those words felt like a cruel joke now. He'd loved me for my corporate credit card, my industry connections, and my ability to get him into exclusive events. Without those things, I was apparently just an obstacle to his ambitions. The apartment felt different now, like I was seeing it clearly for the first time. The expensive furniture we'd bought with my bonuses, the art we'd purchased at charity auctions I'd gotten us invited to, the designer clothes hanging in his closet that he wore to my work events, everything had been funded by my success. Yet, he acted like I owed him more. I made myself a cup of tea and sat on our balcony, looking out at the Nashville skyline. The city lights sparkled below, representing thousands of dreams and ambitions. I'd worked so hard to build my career, to earn respect in a competitive industry, to create a life I could be proud of. But somehow, I'd allowed Marcus to make me feel like my worth was tied to what I could do for him rather than who I was as a person. Tomorrow, I would tell him the truth about my promotion. But tonight, I needed to process the devastating realization that my marriage might be built on a foundation as shallow as my husband's social climbing aspirations. The test had revealed more than I'd bargained for, and I wasn't sure our relationship could survive the truth about either of us. Marcus didn't come home until nearly midnight. I heard his key in the lock, followed by the careful footsteps of someone trying not to wake a sleeping spouse. I lay in our bed, eyes closed, but very much awake, listening to him move around the apartment. Part of me wanted to confront him immediately, to end this charade and reveal my promotion. But another part of me needed to see how far his selfishness would go. The next morning, I found him at the kitchen table with his laptop and phone, surrounded by coffee cups and what looked like business plans. He barely glanced up when I entered. "I've been thinking about damage control," he announced without any greeting or apology for his harsh words the night before. "We need to start reaching out to your former colleagues immediately. If we position this right, maybe we can maintain some of those relationships even without your official position." I stared at him, amazed by his audacity. "Marcus, I lost my job yesterday. Shouldn't you be concerned about how we're going to pay our bills?" "Of course I'm concerned about money," he said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "But the real loss here is strategic. Do you realize how long it took me to build rapport with the Northrise executive team? And now I'll have to start over with some other company's marketing department." "Some other company?" I asked. You mean where I might find a new job? Well, obviously you'll need to find something in the same industry, Marcus replied as if I were being deliberately obtuse. Preferably with a company that has even better connections than Northrise. Maybe Draven Mark Capital has openings in their marketing department. Their client base would be perfect for my consulting services. I watched him scrolling through job postings on his laptop, not for me, but presumably researching companies that might benefit his networking goals. This wasn't a husband trying to support his wife through a difficult time. This was a business strategist recalculating his approach to achieving his own objectives. What if I wanted to try something completely different? I asked. Maybe leave marketing altogether and pursue something I'm passionate about. Marcus finally looked up from his screen, his expression incredulous. Charlotte, this isn't the time for a career change. We need to be smart about this. Your value isn't just your salary, it's your position in the industry. Without that, what do we have to offer? The way he said "we" made my skin crawl. There was no "we" in his thinking, only Marcus and his schemes, with me serving as his unwitting accomplice. I'm going to shower, I announced, needing to escape his calculating gaze. In the bathroom, I turned on the water and sat on the edge of the tub, processing his words. Your value isn't just your salary, it's your position in the industry. He'd reduced our entire relationship to a business transaction. I wondered how long he'd viewed me this way and whether there had ever been genuine feelings between us. When I emerged from the bathroom 20 minutes later, I could hear Marcus on the phone in the living room. His voice carried a tone I'd never heard before, conspiratorial and intimate. I crept closer to listen, my heart pounding. I know, he was saying. The timing couldn't be worse. But maybe this is actually an opportunity for us. Us. I pressed myself against the wall, straining to hear more. Charlotte losing her job changes everything, Marcus continued. I don't have to pretend anymore. She was useful for getting me established, but now... His voice trailed off as he moved further from the bedroom. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Who was he talking to? And what did he mean about not having to pretend anymore? I grabbed my phone and quietly opened the voice recording app, then crept closer to the living room. Marcus was standing by the window, his back to me, speaking in hushed tones. Vanessa, you don't understand, he said, and I realized he was talking to his sister. Charlotte's job was everything. The parties, the connections, the social status, that's what made this whole arrangement worthwhile. Arrangement. My hands trembled as I held the phone, making sure it was capturing every word. I know you think I'm being harsh, Marcus continued, but you didn't see how she looked at me last night, like I was supposed to comfort her or something. She doesn't get it. This was never about love. It was about building something bigger. I had to bite my lip to keep from gasping out loud. 3 years of marriage, and he was calling it an arrangement. Listen, Marcus said, his voice dropping even lower. There's something else I need to tell you. Remember Gabrielle from the Bright Ridge Media launch party? We've been seeing each other for about 6 months now. My legs nearly gave out. An affair? He was having an affair. I know, he said, apparently responding to Vanessa's reaction. But Gabrielle works in brand management at Corwell Electric. She has connections throughout the entertainment industry, and her family owns 3 hotels in downtown Nashville. She's everything Charlotte was supposed to be, but better. I felt bile rising in my throat. While I'd been working 60-hour weeks to support both of us, he'd been building a relationship with someone who could provide superior networking opportunities. The plan was to wait until I'd extracted everything useful from Charlotte's professional network, Marcus continued. But now that she's lost her job, there's no point in prolonging this. Gabrielle's already introduced me to 2 potential clients, and her father is considering hiring my firm for their hotel marketing campaigns. I heard him laugh, a sound that chilled me to the bone. Charlotte thinks this is about emotions and marriage vows, he said mockingly. She has no idea that successful people don't make decisions based on feelings. Everything is strategic. I needed her position to launch my career, and now I need Gabrielle's connections to take it to the next level. Of course, I feel bad for Charlotte, he added, though his tone suggested otherwise. She's not a terrible person. She's just naive. She actually believed I married her because I loved her. The recording on my phone showed 8 minutes and counting. I had enough evidence to destroy him, but I kept listening, needing to understand the full scope of his betrayal. Gabrielle understands how business works, Marcus went on. She doesn't get emotional when I have to work late or attend industry events. She sees our relationship as a partnership where we both benefit professionally. It's so much more mature than whatever Charlotte thought we had. I heard footsteps approaching and quickly slipped back toward the bedroom, my heart hammering. Marcus appeared in the doorway moments later, his phone call apparently finished. "Hey," he said with a casual smile, as if he hadn't just been planning my replacement. "I was thinking we should start making a list of your professional contacts. We need to reach out before word spreads about your termination." I stared at him. This man I'd shared a bed with for 3 years, this stranger who'd been systematically planning to discard me once I'd served my purpose. He had no idea that I'd just recorded his confession, or that everything he thought he knew about my situation was a lie. "Sure," I managed to say. "Let me just get my laptop." That afternoon, while Marcus was at what he claimed was a client meeting, but was probably a rendezvous with Gabrielle, I sat in our living room with my laptop and phone, planning my next moves. The recording of his phone call was safely backed up to my cloud storage, along with screenshots of his text messages I'd managed to access while he was in the shower. I called my friend Jasmine, who worked in our company's legal department. "Charlotte," she answered cheerfully. "Please tell me you're ready to celebrate your promotion. I've been dying to take you out." "Actually, I need your advice about something more serious," I said. Hypothetically, if someone discovered their spouse was having an affair and planning to leave them for financial reasons, what would be the best way to protect themselves legally? There was a pause. "Charlotte, please tell me this is actually hypothetical." "I wish it were," I admitted and told her everything: the fake job loss, Marcus' reaction, the recorded phone call, and the affair with Gabrielle. "Okay, first of all, document everything," Jasmine said immediately. "Keep that recording safe and start gathering evidence of your financial contributions to the marriage. If Marcus has been using your income to support his business, you'll want proof of that." "What about the affair?" I asked. "Tennessee is a no-fault divorce state, so adultery doesn't automatically affect asset division," Jasmine explained. "But if you can prove he was planning to leave you for someone with better financial prospects, that could demonstrate fraud or deception, especially if he was using your resources to court his replacement." I spent the next few hours creating a comprehensive file: bank statements showing my income supporting our lifestyle, emails where Marcus discussed business strategies that relied on my connections, photos from industry events where he'd clearly been networking instead of supporting me, and, of course, the damning phone call recording. By the time Marcus returned home that evening, I had everything organized and safely stored in multiple locations. He walked in with flowers, cheap grocery store roses that looked like an afterthought. "Peace offering," he said with what I now recognized as his calculated charm smile. "I know I was harsh yesterday. This whole situation has me stressed, but I shouldn't have taken it out on you." "It's okay," I lied, accepting the flowers. "I understand you're disappointed." "I've been thinking," Marcus continued, settling onto the couch beside me. "Maybe this is actually an opportunity. You could find something even better than Northrise. I've been researching companies that might be good fits for your skill set." I had to admire his commitment to the performance. "Oh, what did you find?" "Well, there's Corwell Electric," he said, and I had to fight to keep my expression neutral. "They're expanding their marketing department, and they have incredible industry connections. The company president's daughter works there, and she's apparently very well connected in Nashville's business community." Of course, he would suggest Gabrielle's company. The audacity was breathtaking. "That sounds promising," I said. "How do you know so much about their operations?" Marcus' smile flickered for just a moment. "I did some research online. Their marketing team has an impressive portfolio." More lies stacked on top of his foundation of deception. I wondered if he'd ever told me the truth about anything during our relationship. "I have some good news," I announced, deciding it was time to begin my counterattack. "I heard back from Northrise today. Apparently, there was a mistake with my termination. They want me to come in tomorrow to discuss my options." The relief that flooded Marcus' face was almost comical. "Really? That's fantastic. What kind of options?" I'm not sure yet, I said innocently. But it sounds promising. I could practically see the gears turning in his head, recalculating his timeline for discarding me now that I might still be useful. The next morning, I dressed in my best suit and left the apartment, telling Marcus I was going to Northrise for my meeting. Instead, I drove to Coral Electric's downtown office building. It had taken me exactly 3 phone calls the night before to confirm that Gabrielle Wellington worked there as brand manager and that she was indeed the daughter of hotel mogul Charles Wellington. I parked across the street and waited. At 11:30 a.m., I saw Marcus' silver sedan pull into the parking garage. 20 minutes later, he emerged with a striking blonde woman wearing an expensive dress and carrying a designer handbag. They walked to a nearby cafe, their body language unmistakably intimate. I followed at a distance and positioned myself at a table where I could observe them clearly. They sat close together, her hand resting on his arm as he showed her something on his phone. When she laughed at whatever he was saying, she leaned in and kissed his cheek, a gesture that felt like a knife twisting in my chest, not because I still loved him, but because of the sheer brazenness of his deception. I took several photos with my phone, making sure to capture their faces clearly and document the timestamps. Then I called the cafe and asked to speak with the manager. "Hi, this might sound strange," I said when she came to the phone. "But I'm a private investigator working on a case. I'm currently observing 2 people at table 7, the man in the navy suit and the blonde woman. Would it be possible to get a receipt showing the date and time if they pay with a credit card?" "I can't give you private financial information," she said, "but I can confirm if someone was here at a specific time if you have a legitimate legal reason." "That would be perfect," I said. "I'll be in touch." Marcus and Gabrielle spent nearly 2 hours together, and their goodbye was anything but professional. I had enough evidence to prove the affair, but I wanted more. I wanted to understand exactly how he'd been using my professional relationships to court his replacement. That evening, Marcus returned home with an unusual amount of energy. He practically bounced through the door, humming under his breath. "Good news," he announced. "I landed a new client today. Coral Electric wants to hire me for a marketing consultation project." I looked up from my laptop, feigning surprise. "Wow, that's amazing. How did you hear about the opportunity?" "Just good timing," he said vaguely. "I've been networking in the right circles." "What's the scope of the project?" I asked, curious to see how much he would lie. "Brand positioning for their hospitality division," Marcus replied. "Apparently, they're expanding their hotel partnerships and need fresh marketing strategies." Everything fell into place. Marcus was establishing himself as an authority in the field and funding his consulting materials with our shared money after Gabrielle provided him with intimate knowledge about her father's company progress. He was actually impressing his affair partner's family with my money. I responded, "That's wonderful, honey," with sweetness. "When do you start?" "Next week. The nice thing is that they may introduce me to some of their partner firms if this goes well. This could be the innovation I've been aiming for." I nodded enthusiastically as I calculated in my mind how much of our joint income he had been spending on his relationship with Gabrielle. He had claimed that the pricey dinners were client meetings, that he had purchased new clothes for important presentations, and that he had suddenly developed an interest in upscale hotels while claiming to understand market trends. My money had been used to finance all of the courtship activities. I said, "I'm so proud of you," with a sarcastic tone. "You've worked so hard for this opportunity." Marcus smiled, utterly unaware that his wife had just spent the day recording his infidelity and was preparing to sabotage every element of his well-crafted lie. After he went to bed, I told myself, tomorrow I tell him about my promotion, and then the real fun begins. Within 6 months, Marcus' whole plan had fallen apart in a spectacular way. Word swiftly traveled across Nashville's close-knit business world when I told our professional network about his affair and deceptive actions. After Gabrielle's father found out about the relationship, Coral Electric quickly ended his consulting contract, and a number of other prospective clients stopped interested after learning that he had been abusing personal connections for commercial advantage. He was practically unhireable in the business he had worked so hard to get into because of his reputation as an opportunistic social climber. After learning of Marcus' calculating attitude to their relationship and the humiliation of her father's disapproval, Gabrielle stopped their affair and moved to Atlanta to work for her family's hotel company. Marcus was obliged to return to live with his mother in Memphis while working at a contact center to pay his expenses, since he had no money, no prospects, and a network of burned bridges. In the meanwhile, I had never thought that my elevation to vice president would lead to speaking engagements, board positions, and sincere friendships with individuals who respected my knowledge more than my connections. Standing in my new corner office with a view of the Nashville skyline, I thought about how Marcus's testing had shown not just his actual character, but also my own value and strength. When we stop striving to be what other people want us to be, the most painful betrayals can often turn into the best gifts, allowing us to find our true selves.